Sorry for the chaos here while I get all of this straightened out, but I think I'm streaming. So here we go. Let me make sure I don't have double audio. There we go. Their audio should be fixed. And here we go. So can somebody like say something right now so I know you're at least like say something so I know that you're at least seeing this on Twitch.
Yes, me.
I guess you can say something on the Twitch chat, but I want to make sure people are hearing me right now. Except for my roommate who's apparently making dinner.
Say something.
Okay, so yeah, okay, good. Then let's do the eyelids.
Yeah, I can see it too. Yeah.
Cool. All right, we're going to do the eyelids now. We'll do it a different way. So obviously the way I did before is to build it up. And again, I truly feel like you're going to get better at sculpting if you just do that over and over. But again, I like to give you multiple ways to do anything. And this is Mike DeFeo's method. So credit where credit is due, you know. Let's go over it. So it's pretty cool. And it guarantees you have perfect thickness for eyelids. So first, I like to start with one eyeball, by the way, and then mirror it. So in this case, I have two, so I'll split the parts. And so I have two eyeballs, pick one, delete the other, right? So I'll delete this one. And so this is assuming you've already kind of hollowed out a cavity, or if you have a skull you're starting with and you're putting the eyeball in there. Either way, same kind of idea. Make sure with this eyeball, and I'm hitting F twice to bring it in nice and close. Make sure with this eyeball that the pole is facing outwards. So the pole is facing in the direction that you want the eye to look. All right, next we want to duplicate this and clip it. And so there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to hide the head temporarily, and I want you to watch how I do this. By the way, you can lower the poly count because you can always divide back up. It's just a sphere. So if I click reconstruct subdivision, I can just go down until I can't go down anymore. Or in this case, it's got triangles, so it's a big FU. I mean, yeah, triangles are bad. Okay, so what do we do? Well, first we need the pivot point back on here. And already this is kind of a weird, like, where's my W button? Where's my gizmo? Oh, see, everything's already messing up. So what do I need to do here to get my widget back or my gizmo? If I hit the Y button and I draw a line pretty much anywhere, actually, you're going to see that this creates what we call a line of action. And it's the old transpose tool. It's the old tool that we use to move stuff around in ZBrush. And the way we would do it is we'd click right on the outer ring of these circles to move the transpose tool around. And we click on the inner ring to say move the object around. This is old school stuff. All right, and then we could even hit R for rotate and rotate it around, etc., etc. It's old because people preferred the other one, which was the widget or the gizmo, right? So if you draw a transpose tool and then hit the Y button will travel between or convert between the gizmo and the transpose tool, or a line of action, right? So most people prefer this because it feels much more like Maya or 3D Studio Max. But if you've lost your gizmo, just hit the Y button, draw some kind of line of action, and then hit Y again. See, now you've got this guy back. We can use this sort of map marker to center our pivot point. We can hold down Alt until the red arrow is facing downwards, and now we've effectively centered our pivot point. Now, okay, so we've centered the pivot point on the sphere. Next, we can duplicate the sphere. Of course, we can click duplicate here, but actually in this case, we want it to be on the same subtool. So I hold down the control button and drag the arrow, which effectively clones the sphere.
Pasta sauce.
Oh yeah, nice. So anyway, from here I scale, but what's the problem here, right? The problem is that I can scale it, but I haven't yet clipped the sphere. So what you might want to do is once you duplicate it, and how can I duplicate it again? I can just hold down the control button and just pull on any one of these arrows. So I can hold down the control button and pull on a corner arrow. That'll do it. Or I can hold down the control button and pull on like an up and down arrow. Either way. But I can basically move the sphere out of the way just so we can see it a little better. Just moving it vertically. And there's like lots of different ways to clip or cut a sphere in half. I believe here if you hover over the red box, it actually tells you to control to clip and alt to scale. So to hold down control and scale this way, you should see the clipping. Oh, yeah, I believe it's happening. Let's do that again. And now it's clipping the sphere in half until we clip the sphere all the way down to the middle. I think I'm making the bottom eyelid, I guess, in this case. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Scale it up. Turn off the wireframe. It's bothering me. And move this guy down. Now, as to how much you want to scale it is how thick you want your eyelid to be. Seriously, Charles. Please. So that's the thick eyelid down there. And then we can rotate it like so. So that's my, my lower eyelid. So what do I do for the upper eyelid? Well, I could follow the same process over again to make the upper eyelid. Or, logically, we could... Actually, I've done something wrong. Hold on. I rotated the wrong way. Sorry. I want to rotate this way because, remember, the poles should be facing outwards. Sorry about that. Rotate this way. That makes a lot more sense. Lower eyelid. And then, for the upper eyelid, to duplicate again, don't forget, hold down control, drag on an arrow, so I can duplicate it and then spin it like so to make the upper eyelid. And there's that eye shape. CBS logo, you guys are familiar with that. If you wanted to, you could probably scale this out a little bit larger, but you kind of want to maintain the thickness to be pretty similar, so don't go too far with this. And instead, what you would want to do, let's like turn the head back on. Oops, I realized I did everything backwards. Oh no, the eye's backwards. What should I do? Clear your mask, control drag, E for rotate. Probably want to center again, hold down Alt to like get the red stripe until it faces us, and then rotate. Those eyelids are crazy, right? Kind of big and crazy. But you're getting the general gist of this. I almost want to reposition the entire eye. Yeah, like that. I feel like it's a little better. Okay. So anyway, from here, you could continue to shape the eyelid, but in this case, you can kind of see so much of the eye socket. I'll scale it down a little bit. It's a little crazy. So much of the eye socket's going through the eye. Logically, you could either Alt-click to go to the head, Q to go back to sculpting, or if you wanted to select the menu, or select the subtool over here, you could use clay buildup and hold down the Alt button to dig out the eye socket. I still think the eyes may be a little big, even for a cartoon character. I probably should have my reference turned on too. And pay no attention to the other side. Let's just stick on this. Stick to the side. Eyes probably still too big. Scale it down a little bit more. All right. And now again, that might be too much. Like I said, looking at your reference would probably help in this case too. But now I'm just kind of sculpting. I'm going to sculpt my eye socket around the eyelids a little bit more. Q again for sculpt versus your transform, right? The larger the brush you have, so again, if I really want to do a lot of damage here, I'll make a larger brush to smooth out. But in this case, I want to dig out the corners enough so that I can see the eyelids this way. dig out the eye socket a little more. Whoops. Got a little lag here going on. I'm pretty sure that with Twitch, I get like some lag.
Ray, do you want me to leave out your Tupperware for your art project?
Dude, not right now. But no, oh, the Tupperware? No, that's
Okay.
still need to use that. Sorry.
Alright.
It's okay. Okay. So sculpt out around the eyelids and define the eye socket a little more. Oh man. Let me check really quick. Okay, it looks like it's streaming fine. I just want to make sure everything is working the way that it's supposed to. Come on. Cool. 13 people watching. All right. It's working. I just want to make sure. So now, hold down Alt, like I said, dig around the eyelids. Sorry for the lag. I'm kind of surprised it's lagging this much, but remember, the larger the brush, the more destruction it's going to do, or more work. I guess you could say if you're smoothing, you know, it's going to do a lot more work smoothing with a large brush. And you can kind of watch this happen if you turn on this wireframe, right? So you can see how larger triangles are growing when I smooth with the larger brush. You don't always have to use a clay brush either. Like, there's no reason that says that you have to. This feels really weird. Let's do a little bit on the side. Like I said, you definitely want to see that the corners of the eyes are lined up pretty much side to side. Turn on perspective. Zoom out a little bit. Come on. Oh, I'm getting a lot of lag. Sorry, guys. Wow. I'm sorry. I don't know what's causing all this lag. Okay, there we go. So the upper eyelid should maybe go... I'll move some stuff around. This guy could go down over this a little bit. I really want to see in there. And smooth. So from here, you could continue to work on the shape of the eyelid. Upper eyelid. And give him some facial whoops, a little too far. Alt click. Make sure you're using move topo right now, because you might accidentally move stuff you didn't mean to. And Alt again will push and pull. See? Adding a little thickness to the eyelid. But more to the point, you can begin now to give the character a little more expression if you want. You can separate the eyelids if you want under split to parts, and that'll give you your eyelids separate. So again, if that's something that you want to do, you could also smooth this out because it's pretty hard edge. Pull down Shift. Whoa, that's not with Sculptris Pro on. Hold down Shift, turn Sculptris Pro off, lower the Z intensity, so that way when I'm smoothing now, it's not as destructive as it would be with Sculptris Pro mode on. And it's just smoothing out the edges a little bit so the eyelids aren't just like razor sharp like they were before. I'm just kind of smoothing these edges out, like I said, a little bit. If I hold down Shift and adjust my Z intensity, then I can do this, you know. All right, so yeah, if you want to keep sculpting the eyelids from here, make sure again you're on Move Topo. It's really important. And then a relatively large brush, and you know, figure out again how you want this sculpted in terms of facial expression. Or how low the eyelids are. I don't know. So when you want to get this over to the other side of the head, you can click Duplicate, then down at Deformation, Mirror. I think it gives it a much more cartoony look, personally. But you can definitely work with this and, say, blend it into the head. And if you want to blend it into the head, then you can get very realistic forms out of this. I mean, I feel like the eyes are way, way, way wrong in terms of proportion. But then again, I don't have my reference up at all. Oh yeah, see, the eyelids should have come down a lot more. Always leave the reference up, might help. So yeah, using Move Topo, you know, I can get a little bit more. An Alt again will push and pull. But you can take these eyelids using a large move brush, and you can kind of begin. Again, Alt, don't forget, because you don't want the thickness of these eyelids to start to change. You want the thickness to remain the same, if you can help it, and try to keep that curvature going as well. So when you like it, and again, I'm using Move Topo because if I was using something like just the regular move brush, it would move the eyeball at the same time, and that's very important for you to understand. So don't use the move brush in this case. Use the Move Topo specifically so you're moving just one eyelid and not the whole thing. So look, if I were to switch to the regular move brush, F for fit, what's going to happen now? Again, F for fit. If I use the regular move brush, I'm going to have the really irritating problem of moving the whole part of the eye at once, right? And that's not very helpful in this case. So, like I said, use the Move Topo brush, and that'll make sure that you only move the topology of the upper eyelid or lower eyelid. Don't forget the upper eyelid should generally, again, be MT for Move Topo. Don't forget the upper eyelid should generally go over the lower one just a tad, so you know, do that. And the older the character, the more that's going to happen. In this case, this corner is a little higher and this corner is a little lower. That's obviously exaggerated. On a real human, it wouldn't be that way. So if we use the regular move brush, in this case, BMV, then I could grab like the side of the eyelids both together and move them both up at the same time. Generally, I don't like to do that, but if you're grabbing, again, both sides simultaneously, then you can do that. I prefer the Move Topo brush BMT, so that way I'm only affecting, whoops, one eyelid at a time. But it depends on what you're trying to do. So again, if you're moving both eyelids simultaneously, switch to the regular move. Or, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Both eyelids simultaneously, regular move brush will basically move whatever's inside the red circle. If you want one eyelid to move independently of the other, then use Move Topo, and then you won't accidentally move something you weren't supposed to. Try to maintain the same width here for the eyelid if you can. If you're happy with it, if it's like, okay, that looks pretty good, then again, duplicate, And then under, where are you? Deformation, mirror. There we go. Make sure you've got perspective on again. Oh, okay, I do. Almost looks like a little too close together. So, hold on. There's a thing where you don't want the eyes to be too close together, too far apart. And look at your reference. In this case, turn maybe perspective off. And note that this is definitely a bit farther. So I'm going to move this guy this way. And I think that's better. Yeah. Yep, definitely. In a real human, you'd have 5 eyes all the way across, and then the distance between these 2 eyes would be 1 eye. Right? But on a cartoon character, those rules get broken all the time. I could scale the eye down a little bit more. I mean, I don't really have an easy way to make this transparent, unfortunately, unless I use my image plane plugin. So I have to look at my reference and then compare, which really you get more out of anyway, I would say. Now click mirror. That's a lot better. Now we're getting something I think works better. Okay, is this making sense to you guys? This is just an alternate way of making eyelids. The next thing I'm going to do is blend the eyelids in. Before I do that, I might spend a little bit of time reshaping these brows to be a little bit more like my reference. Switch to the clay buildup brush. Smooth back. Oh, Alt click first, make sure you're on the mesh. Smooth back. Oh, hold down Shift, adjust your Z intensity. Smooth back. It still doesn't really want to do it. What's going on? Oh, that's right. All right. Turn. Make a larger brush. You should see. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of a break here and see who's got questions. That's not what I want. Let me double check here.
How are you so handsome, Mr.
Not what I wanted. B for brush, trim for dynamic, and then I was kind of going to try to flatten this out a little bit. And smooth. It's kind of an interesting brush. It's the trim dynamic brush. Okay, again, let me check for questions. Oh my God, what's going on? Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's saying anything in the Twitch or Discord. No, not you. I want to know if these guys have just zoned out at this point. Hello? Oh my God. Okay, well that's probably why I didn't hear anybody. I wasn't connected via Discord. Were you guys watching that on the eyelids? Did it make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sorry I had to mute the Discord, but I can hear you. So again, if you have questions, hello, you're alive. Good, that's nice. It did make sense. Okay, I used a little trick there at the end with the trim dynamic, I believe. Or actually...
That made sense.
Good. Yeah, trim dynamic. So that's B, T, D for trim dynamic. And this is kind of a cool trick because I can kind of make a more planar shape with the brow. See? And then smooth that back. But be careful when you smooth because obviously the larger the smooth brush, the more destruction. So you don't want to go too crazy with the size of the brush. But I mean, this is kind of an interesting effect to try to get a more planar look. Let's flatten out this brow a little bit more and smooth it back. You might want to use a smaller smooth brush. Okay, last thing about the eyelids, because actually his eyelids are pretty high, the line I mean, so it's almost like I want to take my move brush, and again, I usually typically use a pretty large move brush here to make large changes. That's why the move brush is so useful, is to make these really large changes very quickly. If you look at his zygomatic arch, his cheekbone is pretty well defined here. Anyway, and I feel like this is all a lot wider too. Oh, I'm not in perspective, so that does actually make a huge freaking difference. So make sure you're working in perspective. Oh my god, that will mess you up. So just try to get in the habit of sculpting in perspective as much as possible, because you'll accidentally screw up when you don't, like I just did. Flatten this out a little bit more. Okay, so last thing I want to do with the eyelids here is I want to blend them into the brows. Like I literally want this eyelid to be part of the head. I want this eyelid to be part of the head. Eyeballs still need to rotate, so what do? I'll hide this guy down here. I'll split to parts. And when I split the parts, then I have the eyeball and I have the two eyelids, right? So this makes my life a lot easier because I only want to blend the eyelids in. I'll take the eyeball and shift it down by hitting Control down arrow, and that actually shifts my subtools up or down. So Control up, Control down, put the eyeball all the way at the bottom. And then I have the eyelids here. I want to merge these into the head. So what I'll do is I'll put the eyelids at the top. Again, Control up arrow key, like that. And then I can merge them into one another and even weld them into one another. So watch how this works. Merge down. And turn the weld button on in this case. So merge down, bam. So now the two eyelids are one. Technically, if they have different colors, you can polygroup split, but that's not what's important here. I want to merge it down into the head as well. So merge down again. Now, hopefully, at this point, since they're welded, I should hopefully be able to use Sculptris Pro to blend across them. If for some reason I can't, then, well, we have another option, but let's see if it's possible. I feel like maybe not. If I use my clay buildup and go across this, maybe. Yeah, it looks like it's been successfully welded. Oh no, I spoke too soon. Damn, I was hoping. Sorry, we gotta find a different solution. But this is actually a good opportunity to talk to you guys about something I haven't really spoken about yet. I've been relying heavily on Sculptris Pro because it's awesome and new and great and everything. But in this case, you can see the eyelids are not really... I mean, if I use the Move Topo brush, again, BMT, this is still going to tear away. The topology has not yet been blended together. So there's a way to do this. And it's something we haven't really talked about yet. Watch how it works. So I'll do the same thing for review here. I'll split the eye apart by saying split to parts. Now the eyeball is separate. I'll keep that at the bottom. I'll take the lids and move them up to the top again by using Control up arrow. Then I'll merge everything down and I'll weld everything as well. That's going to be under merge down and weld button. Now I was hoping that I could just use Sculptris Pro mode to kind of just go across the seam, but it wasn't really working the way I'd hoped. And I'm not surprised because even though it's welded, it's supposed to be one object. It's your Move Topo brush reveals that no, it's still moving separately. The topology is still separate. So in order to blend this together, this is really important, guys. So this is one I'd like you guys to sort of take notes for because this is really going to be super useful for you. To blend objects together in ZBrush, we can either add or remove objects using something called Dynamesh or Dynamic Mesh. This is down here in Geometry. If you look at your wireframe, these are different colors. And not only that, but very different topology. If I go under Geometry and I go to Dynamesh, then I can turn up the resolution because a low resolution maybe isn't what you want. Let's try 200 and see what happens. Looks like that. You can still, it's kind of chunky, you can see that. It's blended together though. That's the important part. So I hold down shift, and now the eyelids have just been blended right into the head. Of course you want symmetry on. Of course you want symmetry on. We can agree on that. But now the eyelids are blended into the head. It's super useful. I've lost some detail though. So what we'll do, is this making sense to you guys? Look, I'll do this again. I'll turn on Dynamesh, but instead of using a low resolution, so again, if it's like too low, 32 is like the lowest. Watch what happens. Oh my God, 32, what the heck, lost all that detail. So of course we want to go the opposite direction. 1K, 2K, 3K, I don't know. You don't want to go too far too fast. So let's try 800 or something. Click Dynamesh. And watch the wireframe change. But look, I think this is pretty good. We kept all of the detail. We turn Dynamesh off, and the cool part is this actually still works with Sculptris Pro mode. So I can hold down Shift, and this is of course dependent on the size of the brush. But the point is that the eyelid is definitely the same mesh. Right? And this is actually a case where I want a small brush. And I can even turn off Sculptris Pro, but I guess my point is that, yeah, it's eyelids are definitely in there. So that's how now we can continue going with this head if we wanted to. 800 is a little bit high, so I mean you could maybe get away with a little bit less if you wanted to. And the topology isn't very good either, but you could still sculpt really well on this. So if I wanted to make like lines coming out, like, oh God, he's like had a rough night, or maybe he's just like a bit older and has just got like bags under his eyes, then you could go to the damn standard brush, for example. BDS, and you're going to note that if Sculptris Pro mode is on, it's going to work pretty well with Dynamesh. See? Like that's a really nice crisp line. And if we look at what the topology is doing, you can see it's really dense. So if I were to make a large brush, you can really see how it's creating larger triangles. It's pretty wild. It's actually creating larger triangles because of the larger brush as you sculpt. And of course the inverse is also true. I know this is kind of silly and ridiculous, but the smaller your brush, again, the smaller the triangles that are created. So if you're trying to make a fine line with the damn standard brush, it's very dependent on the size of the brush. I think the Z intensity is a little crazy on this, but you can kind of get the idea. If you wanted to make bags under your eyes, don't forget the 1 button will repeat the stroke. So even if you don't quite get what you're after, press the 1 button a few times and you might get closer to what you're after. I don't know. Anyway, or you could just, of course, turn up the Z intensity a little higher. Yeah. I think you guys are getting the idea, though. I'm just making them old now. Just adding age with each line. But yeah, I guess that's all I really wanted to say about eyelids. And that was a lot, maybe too much. I don't know. This is the Mike DeFeo method, but I think it works really pretty well. You know, and you can kind of continue from here. You can give him crow's feet or whatever. All right, now I'm just aging him mercilessly. It's terrible. Just adding. All right. I'm gonna stop. Who's got questions for me? That's really not, of course, very close to my reference, but the bottom eyelid at least is now very well defined, and it may not have been as well defined with the other sculpt. So yeah, who's got questions for me? Come on, you guys. You all, there's only 14 of you in here. Okay, it makes sense. Good. All right, so that's the Mike DeFeo method.
Question.
Yeah, question.
Like,
Go ahead. What's the question? You dropped out. So I don't know. Compare the other one I did. So that's the one I sculpted by hand versus that one. Oh, wow. Push the zygomatic arch out a lot more, I think. But yeah, you could...
Check the Twitch chat.
Oh, sorry. Your mic or audio seems to be... Okay, it's ask here. But is there a method for, like, hooded eyelids? Hooded eyelids? I don't know. Can you send me a link to a picture? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. Like, just... I don't know what you mean. Send me a picture, and I'll... I mean, that's just the way you would do it in general. I don't know. There might be some other methods. His brows still feel like they're really narrow to me. But there might be, you know, I mean, I have to see the picture. I can most likely mimic any picture or anything I see. But if I can't see it, then I don't know what I'm supposed to... Whoops. I don't know what I'm supposed to be mimicking. So... So can you put a picture in the chat? Or like a link to a picture, maybe? This is probably a good time to talk about topology really quick while I'm waiting for the picture. So this is really dense, and it will sculpt pretty well, but ultimately it's pretty dense topology because of Dynamesh. So I would like topology that I can move around easier, and I would like topology that flows with the muscles and forms, the primary and secondary forms, just with the general shape. Like, I just want better topology. Because Dynamesh, this is crazy. Like, if you get close, you're going to see it's kind of all grid-like and stuff. But it's very dense because of the resolution of my Dynamesh. So what do? First of all, I turn off my image plane that I made. And I want to just really quickly give myself much better topology. Something that would have taken a long time in Maya or a long time in 3D Studio Max, we can do really quickly in ZBrush. And this is one of my favorite things because this is something, again, that would be really difficult in most other software. So guys, I guess if you're taking notes, this is a good time to take notes. Oh yeah, find a good picture for the hooded eyes, and I'll try to answer your question. How did I cut the sphere in half again? I didn't cut the sphere in half. I clipped the sphere, and I clipped the sphere by using the scaling tool up here, which is E. So using E, I'll turn on an eyeball really quick to show you what I mean. And by the way, if you shift click on this eyeball, then it isolates. Oh my God, it's no longer a sphere. I stretched it out by accident. Oh God, that's terrible. Don't do that. Don't stretch your sphere out. Yikes. I guess I used the move brush and didn't mean to. That's what happens when you use the move brush and you didn't realize it, guys. That's why I prefer the move topo brush. But anyway, to answer the question, it's a valid question. So, oh, come on. F. Got a problem with the pivot point being wrong again, don't we? I think the pivot point is wrong. So, Y, draw a little action line, transpose line, whatever you want to call it. Hit Y again. This takes you back to the good old widget. I mean, the new widget, because the transpose line was like old school. Hit the map icon. That centers it inside of the sphere. Now, it's centered. That's what this means. It's centered inside the sphere. Then, if you hold down the control button, it'll duplicate it. But you want to know how to clip it. So the clipping is just... I think I can move it up so you can see. The clipping is, if you hover over one of these boxes, it says hold down control. So you hold down control, oh, there it goes. Hold down control, and now you can see I'm clipping in half. Hopefully you're not silly enough to warp your sphere eyeballs. That's so embarrassing. I can't believe I did that. Don't ever do this. Don't ever have eyeballs that aren't spheres. Please, please. no lumpy wobbly eyeballs. That's just terrible. I'm gonna pretend like that didn't happen and keep going. Oof, that's terrible. Anyway, hopefully that answered your question about cutting the sphere in half. Yeah. Okay, cool. Moving on. So, topology, man, always kind of a pain to deal with. So this is very dense topology. It's Dynamesh topology. I've duplicated the two objects. The top, or they both have Dynamesh right now. Watch how I can change this very quickly from very dense topology that maybe I could sculpt, but generally is hard to deal with. Go down to geometry. Under geometry, open up Z-remesher. This is going to remesh this head, retopologize it. The default poly count is 5 for 5,000. This is in increments of 1,000. So if I wanted 4 for 1,000 and so on, 3 for 3,000, blah, blah, blah. Or I could use double the current poly count or half the current poly count and so on. For a head, I mean, like this, it's a simple one. Let's try the default. Let's see what happens. Why not? So hopefully if you have a fast computer and it's plugged in, then this shouldn't take that long. If you have millions of polygons at this point, you're going to be waiting a little while. So fair warning, if you've got millions of polygons and you're doing anything in ZBrush, you could be waiting a little bit of time. I mean, it really depends on how fast your computer is and how many millions of polygons are we talking, right? So I guess with this question, while I'm waiting for Z-remesher, you know, I can answer any questions. I can sing a major game show theme song, or I don't know, wait for the yellow bar across the top of the screen to keep going, man. Just keep going. So again, if you want to save time here, try not to Z-remesh stuff that's over a few million polygons. Really, just take my advice here. I mean, a million to 3 million, it'll be okay. It'll take a little time, but I mean, if we're talking, oh, there it goes. Hey, look, nice clean edge flow. Edge flow that actually follows the shape of the face. Super nice edge flow. So look at the difference. This is the Dynamesh, very dense, sculptable, but otherwise really kind of hard to use. And this is my new super nice Z-remeshed edge flow. All right. Now what do? I want to get some of the detail back from the object underneath it. I hit Control D to divide up the mesh. What this is going to do is it's going to go from the current like 13,000 to 4 times that, which is 52,000. This is called dividing up or dividing down. If we go to the geometry menu, we can actually see this under divide and subdivisions. So like the lowest one is what the Z-remesher algorithm created. That's here. I hit Command D, it goes up to 2. I can click divide again, or Command D, it goes up to 3, etc. Now, the idea here is we click on Subtool Project, and this is going to get the detail back from the visible mesh underneath it, which is also, like I said, this is Dynamesh down here, and this is Z-remeshed with new subdivision levels. So I feel like I've lost some people, or I'm boring some people, or whatnot. Maybe, I don't know. This is surreal because I can't see you, and nobody's saying anything that I can hear, so I have to just sort of check the chat every so often, and it's a little weird. Whoa, man, that's some OBS Inception, some crazy stuff. All right, so I've projected the details. Turn off the wireframe, and you can see now I basically have all the detail, and it's really nice though. I can hit Shift D to go down to this lower level, and I can hit D to go up to the higher level. Why is this so cool? Because at this lower level, I can do stuff like change the facial expression super fast and easy. No problem. Make one eyebrow a little higher or whatever. I don't know. Change its facial expression down here. I hit the D button to go back up, you know, and it remembers that detail, right? So hitting the D button goes back up, and I still have that detail, but now I can very easily move stuff around. Because I have multiple subdivision levels, I can go hit Shift D. Really, really easy to just move around the model like super fast down here. And it remembers all of the detail when I hit the D button and go up to the next level. Okay, guys. Some of you guys know that. A lot of you guys don't. Let's turn the eyeball back on. No, did I delete an eyeball? I think I did. Duplicate this guy. And then under deformation, mirror. Okay. So now I've got kind of an interesting facial expression. And the eyelids are built into the head now. It's all one object. All right, I think I need to check for questions again. Don't forget to use your Move Topo brush, BMT, to just affect small parts like just the upper eyelid and not the bottom eyelid, for example. All right, you guys got to have some questions for me at this point, I hope. I mean, you guys did some great work on your blog, so I can stop this because this is really just the eyelid demo. I did promise you guys I would go over another way to make eyelids. So if you're happy with it still feels weird over here. If you're happy with eyelids, I feel like, or you understand the Mike DeFeo method and why it's like pretty cool, then maybe we can move on to other stuff. But there's yet another way to make eyelids. This is where I am with the eyelids that I sculpted. It's a totally different technique, still valid, but maybe a little bit more difficult to get the right thickness of the eyelid all the way around. All right. Who's got questions? I don't know. All right. This is like the best I could find. The left is a better example of a hooded eye. This left side is the best example of a hooded eye where the outer corner of the eye overlaps or folds. Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about. Sure. I gotcha. Well, that would have been a lot easier to do when these eyelids were not blended into the head. Geez. Now that they're blended in the head, it actually makes it a bit more difficult, but I'll try to do it with what I was working on. So if these were not blended into the head, then it would just be easy enough for me to kind of bring the brow over top of it a bit. But I'll try and do it here. So masking, I think, is the answer. Try and go to maybe the standard brush, BST. Let's turn off Sculptors Pro. Hold down Control, go to Mask Pen. And change the size of your brush because it's huge. And mask out what you want to protect. Which is this case going to be kind of this inner eyelid. Like this. And be careful, because you really got to be careful with your masking here. Command and Alt will allow you to remove. And you could also try using your mask lasso, but the problem with the mask lasso is that it's going to go all the way through the head. And that's kind of obnoxious. Brackets may also change your brush size, so you may prefer to use brackets to change your brush size. If you're like a Photoshop person and you're used to using brackets, that might be a good tip. Again, Control and Alt to remove, and then Control to add. And I might not need to do this much. There's also a nice trick if you click from the basic white material to the flat color. Oh yeah, see, now I can see. Flat color is showing me that I didn't get, oh, careful there. Flat color is really showing me where my mask is. And I missed again. This is where, again, I should be using my stylus. And it's a little tricky without the stylus, which I really should be using. So sorry for the... And, you might want to click several times because the thing is, You don't want a lot. You don't. When you hit up the undo button, you just want to be able to undo just a little bit, not a lot. Okay, that might be good enough. Oh, somebody's saying something. I'm sorry. Somebody, anybody? Question? This is so weird for me. I'm used to people like actually interrupting me with questions or something. When you have the inner eyelid like this, especially if you've re-topologized, we can go down to a lower level. Yeah, I'm used to people like interrupting me with questions or saying something, some kind of sound, other than what's in the other room. Hooded eyelid? Is this kind of what you mean? I feel like this is what you're talking about. I feel like this maybe is kind of what you mean. Is this what you mean? Maybe. Note how the smooth works better. Also, at lower, see this, the smooth and the move are both going to work much better when we have lower poly count. I don't know. Maybe that's not. I mean, I'm not looking at the reference when I'm doing this, but ooh, wait, that's crazy. All right, let me go back and look to see if I'm like maybe not getting what you mean. But I feel like I'm getting what you mean. Maybe not. I don't know. Hold on. This you would mask the inside of the eyelid, and then once you have your masking, then you would use your move topo, basically, and gently move the brow. Remember that Alt will push and pull out. So see, by using Alt, I feel like this is what you're talking about. I hope. Say something, anything. Isn't it? Is there anybody out there? Yes, no? That's Elisha? Man. You guys are killing me. Yes, it probably would have been easier before combining it though, but I definitely got it. Yeah, it would have been a lot easier. I wouldn't have had to mask. That's the difference. That's the big difference. So because I combined it into the head, then I had to go through the effort now of having to go back and mask it because of combining it into the head. If I had not, oh, and Control H, by the way, actually hides my mask, FYI. So that's useful. I don't always want to have my mask on. See, again, Control H. Okay. Whew, I gotta take a break from the eyelid thing. I made this kind of funny expression, but I mean, you keep going with it, definitely, if you wanted to. But I want to like look at your work a little bit and maybe do some scan cleanup would be good, you know, instead of just making weird expressions. Okay, so any other questions right now while I have this up, or are you guys ready to move on to some scan cleanup? I feel like I should stop the session and then move on to scan cleanup, or is hair something you would rather me talk about? Like go back to hair, because I could definitely sculpt this guy's hair a lot more. Note that I put a hat on his head. So I did add that prop, and I just used subtool insert sphere or a pen sphere, and then I just kind of moved it around with the move topo brush. I don't know. Are we ready to move on to some scan cleanup? Because I really feel like we need to, or do you guys want me to talk a little bit more about sculpting hair? Because I can do that too. The recipe is basically use inflate to get volume, use clay buildup after that to sculpt your volume, and then use the /2 brush to separate the volume. That's pretty much the recipe. But I feel like we're neglecting our scan data, and I need some input from you guys. So you're not on Discord. Here. You're right. I'm not on Discord. Sorry, but that shouldn't. I mean, okay. Unless I'm sharing the screen on Discord. Oh, it's because I need to be able to click on that to.
We said to move on to scan cleanup, and also I had just had questions about changing the topology about with the face,
Yes.
so that it has a lower poly count.
Yeah, let me do that again one more time, and then I want to stop the stream, and then we'll move on to scan cleanup because I feel like the stream's been going on a long time. So I prefer these streams not to go like 45 minutes to or more than an hour if I can help it. So demos can run kind of long. But really quick, because this is valuable, look, this Sculptress topology or Dynamesh topology is not particularly good for animation. And if you're using Sculptress mode, this is fine, of course. But it's better to have, of course, better topology that flows with the muscles and shapes and forms of the head. Again, duplicate this guy. This is a good trick to isolate. If you shift click on an eyeball, that isolates. I'll do that again. Shift click on the eyeball will show everything, or shift click on the eyeball, show only what you're working on. So that's a really nice way to isolate the subtool that you're working on. But I want both of them visible, so they're just exact duplicates at this point. Now on the top one, always the top one, that's important. That's the one you want to Z-remesh. Use Z-remesher default of 5 for 5,000. Again, you can change this if you want 10 for 10,000. A head doesn't typically need to have a huge amount, especially the lower the polygon count. So let's do 6 for 6,000. And it might not hit that target, but the lower the polygon count, the easier it is to pose. Also, you can always divide up by hitting Command D or clicking the divide button, and that each time will give you 4 times the density. If you have a 10,000 mesh, or in this case maybe a 6,000 mesh, right? So 6 times 4, 24,000, ideally. Watch how the topology changes. So, boom, right? Much nicer, much cleaner, animatable topology. Very nice and clean how the edge loops go around the eyes and so on. Okay, so now, but the problem, of course, is now I've lost a lot of the detail that I have in the original. So I've got nice edge flow, but at the cost of losing detail. Turn back on the Dynamesh from below, and notice I only have these two on and nothing else. Then I'll click Project All, and you can immediately see that it's trying to hug the new topology over top, like a saran wrap, over top of the topology underneath it. Watch this. I'll hit Command D. Command D will now make 14,000 jump to 58,000. And I have a smoother mesh. So again, 4 times the density. Shift D goes down, right? D goes up. Shift D goes down. D goes up. And Command D will make a new division. I'll go down to the bottom of my subtool palette. I'll make sure both are visible, just the two, and I'll click again Project All. And now you're going to see it's really doing a good job of hugging, like saran wrap, the Dynamesh or Sculptress Pro or Scan Data or whatever it is underneath it. Hit Command D again. Now I'm jumping up here to 233,000 points. Then we can go ahead and, project again. And we can just do this basically until we get all of the detail back. See, it should match. We'll do it one more time. Well, actually, where are we with density? We're up here at 233,000 points. I mean, we can do it. What am I going to jump to? Oh, about 1 million. Sure. So then we'll project one more time. And then I got to really stop this and either critique you guys or move to scan cleanup, which I feel like we're neglecting at this point. All right, 1 million might have been a little extreme for a cartoon head like this, but maybe you want to sculpt some eyebrows that are sculpted into the head, or maybe you just have some fine detail work, like really fine wrinkles around the eyes, maybe. At this point, guess what? These meshes are freaking identical in terms of shape and form. Their wireframes are vastly different. So if I look at the Dynamesh wireframe, Sculptress Pro wireframe, you can see all the triangles, and you can also see the smaller brush obviously generated more triangles here at the eyelid. If I go up by using the up arrow key, that's what I'm getting with the new mesh, or with the new topology. And if I turn the wireframe off, it looks amazing, right? Now I can hit Shift D to go down, and each time I go down to a lower division, you can see I still have the edge loops flowing. It's very animatable. This would be like a game mesh. This would be appropriate to drop into a game engine, for example. And so I can easily erase or smooth out or pose. So again, if you wanted to really quickly pose, it would be a lot easier to pose your character at this much lower poly count. Like a lot easier to pose in general. And then I can just hit the D button, and the D button is going to go up division. See what I mean? Makes sense? You can still pose up here, don't get me wrong, but it's just faster and easier to pose at a lower subdivision. And not only is it faster and easier to pose down here, so I want to give him a smile. I could, or maybe just do one side and make him kind of, Alt again will push in or out. Hit the D button to go up to the next level. See how that works? It looks really weird with no eyeballs. Shift click, turn off the, there we go. Now we have a new posed version. Oh, I didn't pose the mustache, that looks weird. Let's turn it off. Right. Okay, so who's got questions? Questions, comments, concerns? Did everybody see how I made new topology and made new subdivisions? The advantage of making new subdivisions or better topology using Z-remesher, I can always project the detail back in. And I can hit the D button to go back up and re-project the detail. But more importantly, I can just sort of pose the character very easily. And if I have subdivisions down here, like at this lower level, I can even erase very easily. Holding down Shift, just, it erases it completely. See what I mean? So there are advantages to having good topology. It's animatable, it's easier to pose, and it's oftentimes easier to erase or smooth out. All right, I guess I'm going to stop there because I feel like I covered quite a bit about eyelids and covered quite a bit about topology and even posing. So I'm going to stop the stream and move back to Discord. Hopefully that's okay. Yeah, I'm on Discord now. Did you guys hear all that? Did you get all that? Can I stop the stream? Stop it. I'm going to stop it.